Modern technology in the Bible. Nuclear bunkers. Revelation chapter 6, verse 13 to 15. Now, verse 15 says that people went to go hide themselves in dens and in rocks of a mountain. Not just any old people. And the kings of the earth, the great men, the rich men, chief captains, mighty men, and every bondsman and freeman hid themselves in the dens and the rocks of a mountain. Now maybe it's just a coincidence that most nuclear bunkers are carved into the side of a mountain. And just maybe it's all a coincidence that every last person that I've shown we know to have their own nuclear bunkers. Now even more proof that these things are nuclear bunkers are the two verses before it. Verse 13 talks about the stars falling. But again, this is a vision John is seeing. John lives in ancient times. He's never seen a plane, helicopter, or missile. This is a falling star. Actually, it's not. It's actually a missile, but it sure looks like a falling star. Now, in the very next verse, we see that the sky gets rolled up like a scroll. Rolled up like a scroll, that's something that happens right after a nuclear bomb drops. So for a quick recap, John sees stars fall. He then sees the sky rolled up like a scroll. He then sees all the kings of the earth, all the great men, all the chief captains, all the mighty men, and even the rich and free people run into the dens and the rocks of a mountain. Yeah, John saw them running into nuclear bunkers. But what do you think?
Shalom. Before I begin this lesson, I want to give all honor, praise, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachak, Quadash, for giving me the spirit to do this lesson. Lord willing, is edifying to the elect. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone who rule well. They are the leaders of all Israelites in these end times, showing us the correct way to salvation. Shalom to Akwaf in order, meaning you Israelite sisters that are in order. Shalom to you brothers out there teaching on highways and hedges. And shalom to you Israelites that look like these other races of people. But your seed line goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, making you a Hebrew Israelite. Regardless of your appearance, because it ain't about color. It is about the chosen seed line, which the seed line of Israel was scattered among all nations. Therefore, they're going to look like all nations. So shalom. Shalom means peace be unto you, by the way. All right. And, you know, in the opening clip that you just saw, that was going into the sixth seal mentioned in the book of Revelation, chapter 6. So what I'm going to do in this lesson, I'm going to read the book of Revelation chapter 6, and I'm going to start at 12 and read through 17, right? And then I got a few precepts I want to bring out, you know, to jump off of these precepts I'm about to read. And basically, this is biblical prophecy. This is what the Bible says. The Bible is a book that predicts the future, that tells you exactly what's going to happen in earth or past events that have happened. Okay, it tells you all about the miracles and the supernatural type of things that exist in this world as far as spiritual power, you know, so-called UFOs that's in there. You know, this is not just any book. Okay, so it tells you exactly what these elites are going to be doing on the day of the Lord, and it further proves that the day of the Lord is going to be a nuclear holocaust, which we're leading up to that moment with all the conflict going on between nations, with Iran, China, Russia, America, so on and so on. You know, the Lord is getting the world ready for this prophecy to play out. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to start here at verse 12. So this is Revelation 6 and 12. And it says, "And I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood." Okay, so what this is saying is that, you know, when the sixth seal was opened, okay, it says there was a great earthquake. Now, this great earthquake is a worldwide earthquake, because when America gets destroyed by nuclear missiles, it's going to shake the whole earth because of the impact of America getting pelted with such powerful weapons, okay? Because these nukes were created by the Lord. The Lord had them designed in a specific way to be used on the day of Yahushai's second coming. Yahushai is who the world ignorantly calls Jesus. Yahushai is his true name, by the way. And when he comes on his second return, he's coming to deliver the elect from this nuclear holocaust. Okay, the elites, they're gonna try to save themselves carnally. They're gonna run to their bunkers. Okay, that's what these scriptures is gonna go into. And that clip that I showed you was a real good clip. Quite short but very straight and to the point. And I just want to kind of expound on it because it's such a good clip, and it's a good clip for you to know as far as what the Bible says and what's getting ready to take place, so that you can possibly prepare yourself and take this Bible more seriously. So it says, and I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake. Now the scriptures speak about how the earth will reel to and fro like a drunkard, okay? Which, I might as well just quickly bring that out and then we'll jump back to this. So that's located in the book of Isaiah. Where is it? Chapter 24 and 19. Okay. So this is Isaiah 24, starting at 19. It says, the earth is utterly broken down. The earth is clean dissolved. The earth is moved exceedingly. See? So that's the great earthquake mentioned in the book of Revelations chapter 6 and verse 12. The earth is moved exceedingly. This is all speaking of the same event, okay? The day of the Lord is mentioned in many places in the Bible, okay? It says here in verse 20, Isaiah 24 and 20, the earth shall reel to and fro like a drunkard, and shall be moved like a cottage, and a transgression thereof shall be heavy upon it, and it shall fall and not rise again. And that doesn't mean the earth is gonna, blow up or something, because reading it from face value, you might think it means that, but really it just means that this kingdom, this wicked rulership, this empire that Esau's got going on, okay, over the whole world right now. These elites, these so-called elites, they've got a wicked empire going on, man. And the Lord's saying that this is what's going to bring the fall of their empire, when the Lord, causes that worldwide earthquake and topples their structures, their cities, and the shape of the earth will change as far as the mountains and stuff like that. The landscape, should I say. And you've also got the buildings that are going to be thrown down, and tsunamis and things of that sort that is going to take place on that day. Okay, so it says in verse 21, and it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord Yahweh shall punish the host of the high ones that are on high, and the kings of the earth upon the earth. See, so they're going to run to their bunkers, but the Lord is just preserving them to be for a special punishment. That's all it is. That's why the Lord is going to allow them to run to them bunkers, and also allowed them to build them bunkers. So verse 22, it says, and they shall be gathered together as prisoners are gathered together, are gathered in a pit, and shall be shut up in the prison, and after many days they shall be visited. So, the Lord is going to put these elites straight into slavery. They're going to be the first fruits of slavery, and they're going to stay in slavery. Okay, that's why it says there, and shall be shut up in the prison. Okay, they're going to be stuck in their condition, which is slavery. It says, and after many days, which is 1,000 years, they shall be visited, meaning, they're going to be destroyed. They're going to be judged. They're going to be taken off the earth. Okay, and you can read that in the book of Obadiah, chapter 1 and verse 18. that there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau. Okay, the Edomites are the world's cancer, and the Lord is the physician that is coming to cut off that long disease. Okay, and he that is today a king, tomorrow shall die, and Esau is the king of the earth right now. Okay, so this is why the Lord is setting them up for this special judgment. Okay, so if let's turn back to Revelations, because I just wanted to show you that that's a quick precept to, you know, the fact that the earth is going to be shaken. And let's start again at verse 12. So this is Revelation 6:12. And I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake. Okay, and that's coming from the nukes. It says, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and that's due to the smoke, due to the chariots in the sky, the missiles. There's going to be many things that cause the sun not to shine on the earth. And it says, and the moon became as blood. Now, when it speaks about the moon becoming as blood, this is speaking of blood moons, because smoke don't make the moon look like blood. Okay, so when you read it from face value, it doesn't really make sense. How's the moon going to turn to blood, you know, or even the color of blood? How's that going to happen? No, it's just talking about the signs in the heavens leading up to this day, the day of the Lord, right? And we can prove that in the book of Joel, chapter 2. And if we go to verse 30, it says, and I will show wonders in the heavens and in the earth, blood and fire and pillars of smoke. And verse 31 is the point. And this is all talking about the same day. This is the day of the Lord. Okay, it says the sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and terrible day of the Lord come. So, you know, these blood moons is, you know, signs in the heavens is going to happen before the day of the Lord. Okay. And let's go back to Revelation chapter 6. And let's read verse 13. And it says, and the stars of heaven fell to the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind. Okay, so what John the Revelator saw when he saw this vision, you got to understand from his perspective, he had never seen nuclear missiles or even missiles before. Okay, so, you know, the only thing he can relate, you know, the only way he can make sense of what he was seeing is by relating it to, you know, shooting stars, you know, as people say, shooting stars, you know, stars falling from heaven. Or he also goes on to further explain it as looking like as if a fig tree has been shaken and the untimely figs, you know, fall into the earth. And, you know, what it means by untimely figs is just basically figs that that started growing later on in the season and were growing throughout the winter rather than, you know, in their normal season that they're supposed to grow. Okay, supposed to be fully ripened and drop off the tree by winter. But the being that it's called untimely just means that, you know, they're out of season. They started growing later on in the year rather than at the proper time. So they're growing slowly throughout the winter, and then by the time spring comes, they just drop off the tree, you know. So it just basically means, you know, figs that are ready to drop off the tree. So when you get a mighty wind and blow against a tree that's got figs all over it, they're going to be raining down upon the earth. They're going to rain down to the ground. Okay. And that's exactly what John the Revelator saw. And then when you go into the technology of the, what they call it, the Sarmat, it's the Satan II missile that Russia possesses. If you look at how the warhead splits into 12 as it's re-entering the atmosphere, let's just say, because it goes into the lower atmosphere, and then it re-enters the atmosphere and splits into 12 and rains down upon the earth. And this is what John the Revelator saw. So if you do a little quick Google search or whatever, and you check out the Sarmat 2, I believe it's called, that Russia possesses, you'll see that it's exactly what John the Revelator saw, proving that this is talking about the destruction of America coming through nuclear missiles. Okay, so let's continue reading. It says in verse 14, Revelation 6 and 14, and the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. Now, if you picture a mushroom cloud and you see how the sky rolls away like a scroll, that's what John the Revelator saw. But if you can't see after reading this that this is talking about ICBM nuclear missiles, that's the day of the Lord, then you're at a disadvantage, okay? Because it's very plain to see, if you have spiritual discernment, if the Lord blessed your eyes to see, So it says that this is what John the Revelator saw after, keep in mind this is after what looked like stars falling from heaven hit the earth. He says, and the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together after the impact, right? It says, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places, see? So, the islands also moved out of their places. That's crazy, man. That means that there's going to be such an earthquake in the earth that all the islands are going to be, they're going to be moved. They're going to move out of their place. You're going to see maybe the height of the mountain drop to a lower altitude, You might see the shape of mountains mountains crumble, you see landslides, all sorts, man. It's gonna be crazy. Okay, the earth's gonna have one good shake, and then boom, kingdom of heaven, man, with a new landscape. It's totally new earth, man. Can't wait. Right, now this is the point here in verse 15. So this is Revelation 6 and 15. It says, and the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman and free man, hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains. So this is talking about people running to holes in the earth, such as nuclear bunkers, shelters. People are going to be running in buildings, but everybody is going to hide themselves or try to hide themselves somehow from this judgment. Now all the poor, they're not going to be able to afford no rich luxury nuclear bunker. Okay, so everyone that isn't rich is going to die in America. Okay, but the rich men that can afford these to go really deep under the earth, they're going to be preserved for slavery. Okay, now when it talks about and the chief captains and the mighty men, that's talking about the people, the military, the higher ups, high ranking captains and chiefs in the military. Okay, they're all going to hide themselves in their nuclear bunkers. Okay, because they know this day is coming. This is why they have bunkers. They know this day is coming. They understand prophecy. The elites understand that Jacob is the next ruler of the earth. You know, they understand that the scriptures speak about Esau being the end of the world and Jacob being the beginning of it that followeth. So this is Esau's world right now. And the Lord's getting ready to throw this world down. It's never going to rise again, just like we read earlier. Then comes Jacob's world, okay? And they're not happy about that. And they know that this day is coming, okay? That's why it says here, and let's read verse 16. So this is Revelation 6 and 16. It says, and said to the mountains and rocks, fall on us, and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. See, because they knew this day was coming. So when it actually happens, it's like somebody that's talking all this rubbish, knowing that he's going to have to pay for that later, but he's just around a bunch of cute girls, so he wants to show off or something. And he knows that the consequences later is that you're going to catch him off guard in the streets or in the shop or something. But he don't care. He's just having a good time now. The chicks are loving him, man. You know, he's roasting you, whatever. But he knows deep down that that day of judgment is coming upon him, okay? He knows he crossed the line with you. It's like, all right, I'll be back. And that's how these elites see the day of the Lord, man, okay? They're having fun now. You know, they know the prophecies. They're rich. They're living it up. They're oppressing the poor. They're having fun. But when this day comes, they're going to be like, they're going to take that big goat, that famous goat, and they're going to be like, you know, oh crap, we messed up, you know? And this is literally what this is going into, the thought of the elites during this time. In their bunkers, it says, and said to the mountains and the rocks, fall on us. You know, this is them wanting to, you know, because the earth's going to be shaking, they're going to hope that that bunker just falls on them, man. They're going to hope that they die so that they, you know, don't have to, you know, stand before the Lord and get shackled up and put in chains, although they understand that they'll be born into slavery in the reincarnation. But you know, they they don't want to face the Lord on the day of his wrath, okay? And it says, and from the wrath of the Lamb being Yahushua, who the world calls Jesus. And it says, for the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? Okay, because they know about that great day of his wrath. That's why they said the great day of his wrath is come. And who shall be able to stand? Because they know that there's no escaping the Lord's judgment. Okay? As a matter of fact, let's, speaking on that, let's turn to the book of Amos. So this is Amos chapter 9. It says, and starting at 2, it says, though they dig into hell, thence shall mine hand take them. Though they climb up to heaven, thence will I bring them down. Now, this ultimately is talking about when Amos was prophesying against the northern kingdom because of their wickedness and oppressing the poor and things like that. And, you know, the Lord sent a prophet to tell them to repent, otherwise they're going to be judged. And, you know, basically that when the Lord judges them, there's going to be no escape from that judgment. And that's why it says this is ultimately talking about the northern kingdom. But when we read this, we can also spiritually equate it to this time with the elites, okay? Because the same thing, you know, it still stands. You know, the elites aren't going to escape the judgment of the Lord, just as he explains the northern kingdom not escaping the Lord's judgment, okay? So it says, though they dig into hell, right, which, you know, they're going to dig into the earth. The hell just means the grave. It's just Sheol, talking about, you know, it's just basically talking about deep underground. Though they dig into hell, thence mine hand shall take them. Right? It says, though they climb up to heaven, right? Because they're gonna go into they're gonna be in space stations and, you know, things like that, you know, because they think that being high up in the heavens will protect them from, the destruction below. So it says, though they climb into heaven, thence will I bring them down. So we'll see how that plays out. The Lord might have a chariot go, tow their vehicle back to earth. But verse 3, it says, and though they hide themselves in the top of Carmel, which, it's talking about a mountain, it says, I will search and take them out thence. And though they be hid from my sight in the bottom of the sea, thence will I command the serpent, and he shall bite them. So the Lord got all kind of creatures down there, and the Lord is, commands the animals and nature to do his will. So at the end of the day, if the Lord has a judgment set for you, there is absolutely nowhere you can hide, okay? It says, and though they go into captivity before their enemies, thence will I command the sword, and it shall slay them, and I will set my eyes upon them for evil and not for good. And that proves that it's not talking about Esau in this particular scripture, but we spiritually equate it to him, relate it to him, because it describes to a T what they're gonna do. They're gonna be hiding from the face of the Lord, going into under the ocean and the heavens and the mountains and the holes of the earth, but there ain't gonna be no escape. Okay, right, this is the book of Nahum, chapter 1, and I'm gonna start at verse 5 and read through 7. And it says, the mountains quake at him, and the hills melt, and the earth is burned at his presence, the world and all that dwell therein. So that's ultimately going into how the day of the Lord is going to be, okay? It's all throughout the Bible, man. Okay, this is the ultimate day of the Lord's wrath, okay, against the wicked, which is Esau, Edom, and the heathen nations, okay? It says in verse 6, who can stand before his indignation? Indignation means righteous anger. So the Lord ain't, the Lord does no wickedness. He's righteous in everything he does, and he's righteous even though he's going to destroy a lot of people by nuclear missiles. It's still counted as righteousness. And if you can't see it that way, then you don't have the Lord's Spirit in you. You're not seeing clearly. So it says, who can stand before his indignation? And we read that in Amos 9. There ain't no escaping the Lord's judgment, man. It says, and who can abide in the fierceness of his anger? None. It says, his fury is poured out like fire. See? It says, the rocks are thrown down by him. See? So every island is going to be moved out of his place. The cities are going to crumble. These skyscrapers are going to fall down. A lot of them. Okay? This is all going to happen by the Lord on the day of his anger. Okay? He's not coming back to, to love everybody, be happy, and bring peace on earth like that. I mean, he is going to bring peace on earth, but not in the way that Christians seem to think, man. Let's close it out with this, verse 7. The Lord Yahweh is good, a stronghold in the day of trouble, and he knoweth them that trust in him. See, that's why it's important to trust in the Lord. Be one of those souls that fit this prophecy. Okay, the Lord has his eyes on his elect. That's all he's concerned about. That's why it's very important to do what you got to do to make your calling and election sure. Okay, now I want to bring out one last precept. Let's turn to Jeremiah chapter 16 and verse 16, because this is partly what they're going to fear, these elites, when they go into them bunkers. It says, behold, I will send for many fishers, saith the Lord Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. Okay, so what the Lord is saying is that in the end times, the Lord is going to send for fishers of men. Okay, because, one of the disciples, I believe it was Peter, was in the boat fishing, and the Lord said, follow me, I'll make you a fisher of men. Okay, and that's what we're doing in these end times as prophets back in our lot and, fishing for the elect. So the Lord has sent for the fishers, which you're seeing. You know, your scriptures speak about your eyes shall see your teachers. And that's what you're seeing when you see Hebrew Israelites. The Lord has sent for many fishers, right? I will send for many fishers, saith the Lord, and they shall fish them. And after, meaning on the day of the Lord, and after will I send for many hunters. See? So after the day of the Lord's going to change, you know, his elect into them new bodies. And then they're going to go hunting for the elites that went into those bunkers. That's why the Lord said his hand is going to grab them out. Okay? And it says, and they shall hunt them from every mountain and from every hill and out of the holes of the rocks. So, you know, when it talked earlier about how they will be gathered as prisoners that are gathered in the pit, and after many days they shall be visited. So this is how they're going to become prisoners, is by the hand of the elect. The elect are going to go down there and grab them out of them bunkers, and there's no thickness of a steel door that can hold the elect back when they receive their power. Okay, rip that bunker door off like the Incredible Hulk, not Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan. But yeah, anyway, so that concludes the lesson. You know, I mean, it's very much biblical. Those nukes are coming and the elites are preparing for it, and it's all in the Bible. I mean, it's such a major event that of course it's going to be found in the Bible, man. All right, so Lord willing, you were edified by this lesson. I want to close it out here. I want to give all honor, praise, and glory unto Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Racha Kodash, Shalom.
Modern technology in the Bible. Nuclear bunkers. Revelation chapter 6, verse 13 to 15. Now, verse 15 says that people went to go hide themselves in dens and in rocks of a mountain. Not just any old people. And the kings of the earth, the great men, the rich men, chief captains, mighty men, and every bondsman and freeman hid themselves in the dens and the rocks of a mountain. Now maybe it's just a coincidence that most nuclear bunkers are carved into the side of a mountain. And just maybe it's all a coincidence that every last person that I've shown we know to have their own nuclear bunkers. Now, even more proof that these things are nuclear bunkers are the two verses before it. Verse 13 talks about the stars falling. But again, this is a vision John is seeing. John lives in ancient times. He's never seen a plane, helicopter, or missile. This is a falling star. Actually, it's not. It's actually a missile. But it sure looks like a falling star. Now, in the very next verse, we see that the sky gets rolled up like a scroll. Rolled up like a scroll, that's something that happens right after a nuclear bomb drops. So for a quick recap, John sees stars fall. He then sees the sky rolled up like a scroll. He then sees all the kings of the earth, all the great men, all the chief captains, all the mighty men, and even the rich and free people run into the dens and the rocks of a mountain. Yeah, John saw them running into nuclear bunkers. But what do you think?